So a bit more then on the Madlanga Commission WhatsApp chats alleging that Sergeant Faninkosi used his SAPS position to acquire grabber technology allegedly for sale to Eswatini. The NPA, in addition to that story, the NPA is expected to be in court on Friday to entirely and unconditionally withdraw criminal charges against Crime Intelligence Head Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo, Major General Nozipho Madondo, Brigadier Dineo Mokwele, and their co-accused. Last month, the NPA said it would provisionally withdraw the charges pending the finalization of its review and any further evidence from IDAC. So for both of those stories, let's pick up the analysis with Public Interest South Africa Chairperson Tebogo Khaas, who joins us now for that conversation. Good evening. There's a lot going on, Tebogo. So let's start with the WhatsApp chats of the late Jotham Msibi and other players that are brought into the picture, your Katiso Molefes, your Sergeant Faninkosis, and Stephen Motsumis and others. How pivotal a cog is he, the late Jotham Msibi, in this alleged scheme of cartels that seem to have operated, with a free hand, really, in various procurement spaces within the SAPS, but also within the Metropolitan Police Departments?
Yeah, Tula Caesar, thank you for having me. I would like to start by saying that the adage, dead men tell no tales. But today we learned that, in fact, that is not entirely true. As we've seen, WhatsApp communications from the late Mr. Msibi have spoken a lot more on his behalf in terms of what he was engaged with the likes of Sergeant Nkosi and others, insofar as their conduct is concerned. It was testimony that, as you rightly put it, puts him central in what is alleged to be the Big Five cartel, if indeed that does exist, because you could see the kind of deference and respect and even fear that he seemed to have also, worked around or made sure that he controls the people that work around him or with him or for him. In this instance, he couldn't have had a better runner within the criminal justice system, within the police system itself, than Sergeant Nkosi himself, where you've seen that even Sergeant Nkosi going to the extent of utilizing the resources of the SAPS by way of a letterhead to ensure that he complies with the requirement that they check resellers of those equipment to make sure that whatever it is that they procure is actually officiated, if I may use that term, or put on an official letterhead as if it purports to be from the government. So it was quite jarring revelations today.
What are we gleaning, Tebogo, from this evidence and other evidence about what it is that allegedly made it possible for that kind of infiltration to happen, especially on procurement processes? I mean, we're talking here with something that, if proven, and depending on what the findings will be, alleged misconduct on the South African side involving South African officials, including police officers, now actually spreading its tentacles to another country within the region.
I cannot think of anything that could lead to this except for one thing, which is greed. Human nature, human greed, which seems to be behind the kind of conduct that we would have seen being perpetrated by Sergeant Nkosi and others, even Jotham Msibi himself. He's a man of immense means. He didn't need to go to the extent that he had. But I think power intoxicates, and absolute power intoxicates absolutely, because you would think that he would be content with what he had amassed in terms of wealth. But what this also tells you, it gives a suspicion that that was probably not the only grabber or listening device that they had procured, because I would imagine it's a kind of technology that they have used to instill fears, not only in this industry, but also within the police themselves. If you look at the former Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, the kind of deference and fear that Mswazi instilled in him, you can see that people knew that he had the ability or the means to actually listening in to their conversations, or to even block their conversation if he so chooses, insofar as jamming is concerned. So for us, I would imagine this I hope crime intelligence is a few steps ahead of everyone, and they've done their investigations to the extent that they're establishing the true extent of the kind of malfeasance and corruption and criminality that has been perpetuated through the use of illicit equipment such as the one that Msibi had procured.
In many respects, Tebogo, the story reveals new layers and new details, but in many other respects, parts of it are stories we've heard about. The links to alleged cigarette smuggling or the illicit tobacco trade. There was talk there of something called red water that was also being discussed in these WhatsApp chats. That has to do, we're told, with the processing of illicit gold. So can we ever overcome the problems that are coming through and the challenges coming through at the Madlanga Commission until we've dealt with some of these are legacy issues? We've been talking about them since at the very least around 2016 or thereabouts.
You know, counterintuitively, I would agree with Acting National Commissioner and Minister of Police when they say we need a reset within SAPS. Until we do a thorough, deep dive and cleansing of the top echelons, not only the top, because a sergeant is normally regarded as somebody below the ranks, the entirety of SAPS, we need to ensure that discipline, integrity, and and ethical conduct is instilled across the board. But that is something that's going to take a process, that is going to take a while. It's not something it's not going to be an event. Because if you come to think of it, the kind of things that we've seen being emerging in today's during today's testimony, or not, testimony at Madlanga Commission, is the kind of thing that you ask yourself is, what will it take to actually turn the corner and make sure that there's a complete reset, the public confidence in SARS is restored, but it's going to take a lot. But one thing that comforts me is the fact that not the entirety of SAPS is rotten, if I may use that word, or compromised. The majority of officials within SAPS are diligent, upright men and women who go every day to do right, but they're let down by some within the system itself.
Lastly, Tebogo, then the other story, that major climb down by the National Prosecuting Authority. It came in phases, didn't it? There was the provisional withdrawal and now a complete climb down, the complete unconditional withdrawal of charges against Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo, Major General Nozipho Madondo, Brigadier Dineo Mokwele, and others. What do you make of that development?
Well, after what we heard and the comments made by the commissioners at the Madlanga Commission, there was no room left for the National Prosecution Authority or the NDPP to act other than in the manner that he has done today. In fact, some people are actually asking, including myself, what took them this long after what we've seen. From the get-go, we already had doubts about the prosecution, and we saw when Andre Johnson was testifying and grilled, you could see that there was no basis upon which these people should still remain with a cloud upon their head for a day longer. But we are grateful that the process had to be taken, and I think Advocate Andy Mutibi made sure that he adheres to due process and make sure he can cross the T's and dot the I's before he can say, yes, let's go back to court and get them discharged. Because certainly we need Dumisani Khumalo and his crew back at work and doing that which they are paid to do and that which they are skilled to do, to be able to fix the kind of criminality that we've seen within the system. With Andre Johnson gone, obviously a lot will be looked in terms of who will be heading IDAC, but more importantly, what will become of those who are behind her if she's gone, because we will need to make sure that everybody else is in line and acts accordingly.
All right, Tebogo, thank you for your time and your insights this evening. That's the Chairperson of Public Interest South Africa, Tebogo Khaas, joining us there to give us analysis and reaction to today's developments.